tip. So, Pete, have we got any questions from the chat room? We do an interactive chat room bit.
Hi, people.
We've got a couple of questions for you. The first one's from Richie. It says, what is the most important to business investors, the script or the core team?
I think the most important thing to investors is that the project is going to make money and that it's going to be viable and they're going to get their money back with some profit. I mean, that unfortunately the mindset of the investor is not the same as the mindset of the Film Council or the Arts Council. You know, they're people who, yes, they may be interested in what you're doing from, you know, a passion of theirs, but they're not silly. You know, they haven't become, you know, incredibly rich, you know, by some kind of eccentric chance. You know, so I think it's important to make sure that you have the figures. You know, you've got the business plan in a form which they are used to seeing. They will want to see spreadsheets, and they'll want to see where the money's going, and they'll want to see what you hope to generate from it. And basically that they're going to get their money back, and that's the most important.
Of course, you've got to back that up as well, haven't you? But you can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to sell it because I believe I'm going to sell it." You actually have to have some kind of genuine metrics. And what I've found is the bigger the players you involve in that package, if you have a really great sales agent or a really great actor that you know equals a certain amount of pulling power, all of that starts to make the proposition more concrete.
I mean, there's the famous sort of academic called Richard E. Case, an American chap, and he wrote this book called Contracts Between Creativity and Commerce. And he says in the introduction of this book about in the American Hollywood scene, there is this term, nobody knows. You know, you can make a film, you can do a bit of sort of crowdsourcing and research to see how it goes down with focus groups and things like that. But at the end of the day, you don't know whether it's going to be a hit or not and make money. And the things with the film industry is that often money is sunk in a kind of systematic way where one person puts money in and then someone else does something. And, you know, by the end, the rumour could be going around that it's a turkey, you know, and the people further down the chain may decide to withhold their input because they don't want to spend time and money on something if they've lost confidence. So I think, you know, it is a risk. Any creative product or creative project, it is a risk, and it's very difficult to, you know, be very sure. I mean, Train Spotting, for example, many of the people were on, you know, slave wages for that and had a share in the profits. I think the secretary was very worried that she wouldn't be able to afford, well, she was hoping that maybe she'd be able to afford a kitchen from the profits. She managed to pay a mortgage off. You know, when Star Trek was made, everybody was on a share profit deal apart from the electricians who wanted union rates. The electricians, you may know, were the only people never to become millionaires from the George Lucas film. So, you know, it's a risk, and sometimes it's not going to pay off.
Sure.
But what you don't want is to lose backers and lose that trust.
Okay, Pete, any more questions?
Have there been any recent films that had a different approach to funding? What has worked best and what hasn't?
Well, I suppose when you think about that paranormal film, which I think was
Paranormal
absolutely,
Activity.
the extraordinary way that was made on a very small budget. They used social media. They did a deal, you know, with eventually after getting, I think, 1 million people to agree on Facebook or one of the social networking sites that this was a film worth seeing, and then, you know, a studio released it. So I think embracing social media to gain a kind of audience, I think that could be quite interesting. Also, George Lucas in 1973, when he made his film American Graffiti, Universal Studios wouldn't release it, and there was a screening, and Francis Ford Coppola was sitting in the audience, and at the end of the screening he jumped up with his checkbook and offered to buy the film, and that was enough for Universal then to release the picture. Obviously he didn't have any money in his bank account, but it was that bluff that triggered, oh, well, you know, if he thinks, then we should release it. So, you know, it can work in all kinds of creative and imaginative ways. And I think it's really important to try things, and, you know, don't get too disheartened if they fail the first time. Just keep giving it a go and see if you can learn things and do it better, next time.
Okay. Well, listen. Thank you very much. I have one question that I always ask everyone, and we'll quickly talk about your books.
Yes.
What piece of advice would you offer a young creative person? Let's not say a filmmaker. One single piece of advice. It can be life advice, can be business advice, can be creative advice. What advice would you offer them?
I would suggest that they really learn about the industry side of what they're doing and make friends in the industry. Develop your networks in the industry, because most of the opportunities in the creative industries and in film, as you know, come from word of mouth. And if you're sitting in your room emailing people all day, you need to get out and meet people. Go to film events, go to industry events, and don't be afraid about walking up to people and giving them your card and talking to them. You need to be able to do that. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you to make progress.
Okay. And you brought a couple of your books there. Very, very brief plug. The Essential Guide to Business for Artists and Designers, and the other one is...
This is just out yesterday.
Right.
And Making Sense of Business is an enterprise skills book with lots of ththings about how to sell and negotiate a deal.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll put links on the website for those on Amazon. So thank you very much for coming to chat with